It's time, but I'd like to engage the gentleman for just a moment. If you could please, Mr. Donalds, make sure that as we send the letter, which will be a follow-up to each of them that we had spoken about earlier, if you could help us delineate those questions that you'd like specifically asked, it would be a benefit to myself, Mr. Nfume, and this subcommittee to make sure that we get back an answer within 15 days. And I want to thank the gentleman for his detailed information. And as we had stated, the gentleman yield back his time.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record this GAO report, which shows that preliminary evidence that telework generally had a positive impact on worker productivity and firm performance in certain sectors.
Without objection, we'll enter that into the record. Thank you very much. The gentlewoman, Ms. Tlaib, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. This is, a hard question, and I apologize. I know if you don't know what it's the answer to, it's fine. Because everybody's talking about productivity. It's almost incredibly, I think, dehumanizing the way they're just expecting you all for so little amount of funding. And during a pandemic where we're literally losing loved ones and people were dying and getting sick and some still experiencing long COVID. Had any of you experienced any of your employees dying because of COVID?
Thank you for the question. We are aware of fatalities for employees that are associated with COVID.
Ms. Stevens?
Thank you for the question. Yes.
It, of course, affects the entire workforce, families affected by this, and loved ones.
Yes.
Yeah. I just, I was here, and I don't want to, it'll just be just the unknown and the fact that people were literally, I saw one of my neighbors, just very young man, get COVID and not survive. And I just think that this was intentional. This wasn't like intentional on the part of us making these decisions around telework. But even then, I found out even in the medical field how incredibly effective it was to have some sort of telework component to providing care for many of my residents. But I want to talk about this because it is about so-called productivity in the cases of my colleagues. One of the things that gives me anxiety, and I'm not even you all, is when there's a possibility of a shutdown. And I've been here, and I first came into office, and the first vote I ever had to take in 2019 was open back government after 35 days of a shutdown. What does it take for each of you? Because we literally kept government open that day of, but you all had to start way before we did to prepare for a shutdown. What does that take? Mr. McNeely.
Thank you for the question. So shutdown preparation diverts critical agency resources needed to serve the public. So for example, if we spend just 1 hour on shutdown preparations with each SSA employee, that translates into almost 62,000 hours of time, or about 30 work years of lost productivity.
Yeah, you had to do it even though we kept government open. They don't understand that. How about you, Ms. Stevens?
Well, it affects us as well. It takes weeks of planning.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It takes you away from actually providing services to our residents.
Disrupts our mission, yes.
Absolutely.
As we get closer to a potential shutdown, our teams increasingly working all.
Could you please speak into the mic? It's hard to hear you.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
As we approach a potential shutdown, we work increasingly around the clock to ensure that we're prepared to support the entire workforce.
Any potential lapse in funding has a negative impact on the department's ability to deliver on its mission. The shutdown preparations are not, in my view, an effective or efficient use of our time.
It creates instability. They want to talk about telework when honestly telework actually created some stability in some ways because it's another tool for our residents to be able to continue to get care. You guys call it services, or I call it care. Because I would love for them, because I just hear this kind of vilification, kind of dismissing the incredible role that federal employees have. I can't even imagine working in HHS. I can't, Social Security, unbelievable, complex cases where people have to appeal. You have to provide all this. And a lot of our residents, honestly, it's such a rigorous process because we keep passing all these bills that make it harder for them to apply for services. I mean, it's unbelievable. I actually walk through the process and I'm like, why do they have to submit this? What is this? All because we have a Congress that continues to think that people are constantly out there trying to scheme the system when it's actually, no, they're seasoned residents that need to be able to retire with human dignity. It's folks that are actually losing their job because of a disability. I mean, it's just layers after layers. And so, when I look at this, I have the same questions about productivity. We can show them all kinds of studies over and over again. But at the end, it is our residents that literally come to us and say, oh, somebody, because they don't come to me and say, Rashida, oh my God, it's because of telework. No, it's because of the other layers of bureaucracy that we make them go through to actually get something they paid us into a system for, so that when they are sick and when they are unemployed or they are struggling, that they can actually get services. The other really important question I have, when I think about telework, is the fact that it actually does help you diversify the number of people you can bring into your departments. I notice that. And I see my friends and others that now, because of broken systems, let's be honest, childcare, maybe whatever it is, that they're able to have a lot more flexibility when it comes to be able to work for the federal government. Can you talk a little bit about that? Oh, I'm sorry, am I running out of time? I think I ran out of time. I'm so sorry. I just want to appreciate all of you because it's not perfect, I know this, but I just want you all to know productivity and so forth, when I'm in a Congress that feels unproductive right now and constantly threatening the shutdown, that is something I wish we would focus on, because that's what's going to impact whether or not our residents get quality services. Thank you so much. I yield.
Woman yields back her time. I would say to the gentlewoman, most unemployment and disability is handled by the states.